Commander Vexthul stood before the massive viewing screen of his flagship Dominion's Edge and watched the stars drift past in the cold darkness of space. His forearms moved across the control panel with practiced ease, while his golden eyes studied the data streaming across multiple displays. The information before him detailed a newly discovered species that called themselves humans and inhabited a small blue planet they named Earth. The Zephyrian Empire had grown powerful over the centuries by conquering weaker civilizations across 17 star systems. Vexthul had personally led campaigns against 12 different alien races, and each time victory came swiftly and decisively. His people possessed advanced energy shields that could deflect most weapons, plasma cannons that could melt through the strongest metals, and warships that dwarfed anything most species could build. The pattern was always the same. Arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, crush any resistance, and claim another world for the Empire. Now intelligence reports suggested that humans might be the next target for expansion. Vexthul studied their primitive technology with growing amusement. These creatures still used chemical rockets to travel between their planets, a method so outdated that even the most backward Zephyrian colonies had abandoned it centuries ago. Their largest military vessels carried fewer than 2,000 crew members, while his own flagship housed 50,000 trained warriors. Their weapons appeared to be simple projectile launchers that fired solid metal chunks at relatively slow speeds. The data showed that humans had established only 3 small colonies beyond their home world. Their total population across all planets numbered less than 12 billion individuals. In comparison, the Zephyrian Empire controlled worlds with populations exceeding 100 billion citizens each. The mathematical advantage was so overwhelming that Vexthul wondered if these humans were even worth the effort of formal conquest. Lieutenant Kreshna approached with careful steps, her scaled head bowed in respect. She carried a datapad containing the latest intelligence updates from their scout ships operating near human space. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, though whether from fear or excitement, Vexthul could not tell. Commander, our forward reconnaissance teams have captured a human during a border patrol incident. The prisoner has been brought aboard for interrogation as you requested. Vexthul turned away from the viewing screen and followed Kreshna through the metallic corridors of his ship. The halls buzzed with activity as crew members prepared for what would likely be another easy military campaign. Engineers checked weapon systems, while tacticians planned invasion routes through human territory. Everyone seemed confident that this would be over quickly. The interrogation chamber was a stark room with white walls and bright lights designed to make prisoners feel isolated and vulnerable. In the center sat a single human male bound to a metal chair with energy restraints around his wrists and ankles. He appeared young by human standards, with short brown hair and clear blue eyes that showed no fear despite his situation. Vexthul studied the prisoner carefully. Humans were smaller than Zephyrians, standing barely 2 meters tall, compared to his own 3-meter frame. They had only 2 arms instead of 4, and their skin looked soft and vulnerable without natural armor, plating. This particular specimen wore what appeared to be a simple military uniform made from basic fabric, rather than the advanced materials that Zephyrian soldiers used. State your name and rank, human, Vexthul commanded in the universal translator language. The prisoner looked up with steady eyes and spoke in a calm voice. Lieutenant Jake Murphy, United Earth Defense Corps, service number 77492. Vexthul was surprised by the human's composure. Most species showed obvious signs of terror when faced with Zephyrian interrogation. This, Jake Murphy, seemed almost relaxed despite being captured by aliens with superior technology and firepower. Perhaps humans were simply too primitive to understand the danger they faced. Your people are about to face the might of the Zephyrian Empire, Vexthul announced with satisfaction. We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours. Your chemical rockets and metal projectiles cannot stand against our plasma weapons and energy shields. Surrender now, and your species may be allowed to serve as workers in our expanding territory. Jake Murphy listened to this speech without changing expression. When Vexthul finished speaking, the human was quiet for several long moments. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and spoke with what sounded almost like pity in his Voice. You know, Commander, you seem pretty confident about your chances. That's interesting because you clearly haven't done your homework about my species. We're not like the other races you've steamrolled across the galaxy. Vexthul felt his chest plates flare with irritation at the human's casual tone. Explain yourself, prisoner. What makes you think your backward people can resist the Empire? Jake Murphy smiled then, a strange expression that showed his white teeth. Because you're making the same mistake that every bully makes. You're judging us based on our toys instead of our character. Sure, our ships might look primitive to you and our weapons might seem simple. But there's something you haven't considered in all your calculations. And what might that be? You haven't met us when we're angry yet. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Vexthul studied the human's face for signs of bluffing or desperation, but found only quiet certainty. This reaction was completely unlike anything he had encountered during previous conquests. Most species either begged for mercy or raged helplessly against their fate. Jake Murphy seemed to be making a promise rather than a threat. Later that day, Vexthul convened the War Council in the main strategy chamber, the room filled with his most experienced officers, each one representing decades of successful military campaigns. Admiral Thoraxel commanded the fleet operations while General Quindal managed ground forces. Intelligence Chief Morven provided detailed analysis of enemy capabilities. The meeting proceeded exactly as Vexthul had expected. Every officer agreed that humans posed minimal threat to the Empire. Their weapons technology lagged behind Zephyrian advances by several centuries. Their ships were small and poorly armed. Their total military force appeared to number fewer than 10 million individuals across all their colonies. Admiral Thoraxel recommended using only a small strike force for the initial assault. Why waste resources on such weak opponents? A single battle group should be sufficient to secure their surrender within days. General Quindal nodded agreement. Their ground defenses appear non-existent. Basic energy weapons should penetrate any armor they possess. I estimate complete planetary occupation within one standard cycle. Intelligence Chief Morven added final confirmation. All data suggests this will be our easiest conquest yet. The humans show no evidence of advanced defensive systems or strategic military planning. Vexthul approved the invasion plan with growing satisfaction. Soon the Zephyrian Empire would claim 4 more worlds and add billions of new subjects to their territory. He assigned the operation to Sub-Commander Urelthos, a young officer who needed experience with actual combat situations. It would serve as excellent training for someone destined for higher command positions. As the meeting ended and his officers filed out to prepare their forces, Vexthul found himself thinking about Jake Murphy's words. The human had seemed so certain that his species would provide serious resistance, but what could primitive chemical rockets and metal projectiles accomplish against plasma cannons and energy shields? The very idea was laughable. Still, something about the prisoners' confidence troubled him in ways he could not quite identify. The Zephyrian advance fleet dropped out of hyperspace above the human colony of New Boston, with all the confidence of a hunting pack surrounding wounded prey. Sub-Commander Urelthos stood on the bridge of his command ship and gazed down at the small planet below with satisfaction. This would be his first major victory and the beginning of a promising military career. New Boston was a typical frontier settlement with a population of roughly 50,000 humans. Intelligence reports indicated they had basic mining operations, some agricultural facilities, and minimal defensive capabilities. The colony possessed no orbital weapons platforms, no energy shields, and only a handful of small patrol craft that barely qualified as military vessels. It should fall within hours of the first assault. Colonel Lisa Martinez received the emergency alert while reviewing supply requisitions in her makeshift command center. The former Marine Corps officer had retired to New Boston hoping for a quiet life managing colonial security. Instead, she now found herself staring at sensor readings that showed 15 alien warships entering their star system with obvious hostile intent. The communication array crackled to life as an alien voice spoke through the universal translator. Human settlement. This is Sub-Commander Urelthos of the Zephyrian Empire. You are ordered to surrender immediately and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your colony. Lisa Martinez had served in 3 different conflicts during her military career and survived situations that killed stronger people. She understood exactly what surrender would mean for her colonists. These aliens had not traveled across the galaxy to offer friendship and trade agreements. They wanted slaves or corpses and nothing in between. She activated the colony-wide communication system and spoke in the calm voice that had carried her through countless dangerous missions. All residents of New Boston, this is Colonel Martinez. We are under attack by hostile alien forces. Every person capable of fighting needs to report to their assigned emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. The response amazed even Lisa herself. Within 30 minutes, nearly every adult in the colony had armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find. Miners arrived carrying industrial explosives and heavy drilling equipment. Farmers brought hunting rifles and modified agricultural tools. Even teenagers showed up with improvised weapons fashioned from spare parts and determination. Captain Ben Rogers led the Colonial Militia, a group of volunteers who met twice a month to practice basic combat drills. His people had trained for possible encounters with raiders or wild animals, not advanced alien invasion forces. But when the first Zephyrian landing craft descended through the atmosphere, Rogers and his fighters were waiting. The aliens deployed exactly as their tactical manuals suggested. Large assault vehicles moved across the open ground while armored infantry advanced in coordinated formations. Their energy weapons carved through rocks and trees with devastating efficiency. Everything proceeded according to standard Zephyrian military doctrine until the humans began fighting back. Ben Rogers had spent 20 years working in the mining industry before retiring to colonial service. He understood explosives better than most people understood their own families. When 3 Zephyrian walkers approached the main settlement, Rogers detonated carefully placed charges that collapsed an entire hillside directly onto the advancing machines. The alien pilots had never encountered this type of warfare. Their tactical computers contained no data about enemies who used terrain modification as a weapon. 2 walkers disappeared completely under tons of rock, while the third struggled helplessly with damaged legs until colonial fighters swarmed over it with cutting, torches, and mining tools. Meanwhile, Farmer Jane Wilson had converted her crop-dusting aircraft into an improvised bomber. She flew low over Zephyrian ground forces while dropping homemade explosives from agricultural containers. Her ancient biplane should have been an easy target for alien air defenses, but the Zephyrians had programmed their systems to track fast. Military aircraft, not slow civilian planes flying barely above treetop level. The space battle developed just as poorly for the aliens. Captain Amy Chen commanded the UES Defiance, a small patrol vessel with light weapons and minimal armor. Her ship carried only 40 crew members and possessed no advanced defensive systems. Against 15 Zephyrian warships, she had no reasonable chance of survival. Amy Chen had graduated from the Space Academy with honors in tactical studies. She understood the mathematics of space combat well enough to know that conventional fighting would only delay the inevitable. So instead of conventional fighting, she chose something that Zephyrian commanders could never anticipate. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to ram the largest enemy vessel. Prepare for impact and make sure our final message gets transmitted to every human colony in range." The UES Defiance accelerated directly toward the Zephyrian carrier Starpiercer while broadcasting on all frequencies. Amy Chen's voice carried across space with crystalline clarity as her ship approached certain destruction. "This is Captain Amy Chen of the United Earth Defense Corps. New Boston is under attack by alien invaders who demand our surrender. We choose to fight instead. Remember this moment. Remember our sacrifice. Make them pay for every inch of human soil they try to claim." The collision tore through the Starpiercer's hull like a metal fist punching through paper. The carrier's shields deflected most impacts from enemy weapons, but they could not stop a ship deliberately ramming at maximum velocity. Secondary explosions rippled through multiple decks as the smaller human vessel buried itself deep in the alien ship's superstructure. Subcommander Irelthos watched his flagship die in complete shock. Military doctrine contained detailed procedures for dealing with retreating enemies, surrendering enemies, and even desperate enemies launching final attacks. But nowhere in his training had anyone prepared him for enemies who turned their own ships into guided missiles. The ground battle continued with increasing desperation on both sides. Zephyrian forces possessed superior weapons and armor, but the humans fought with a ferocity that defied logical analysis. Children as young as 12 operated communication networks while under direct fire. Elderly colonists served as spotters and ammunition carriers despite obvious physical limitations. Wounded fighters continued attacking even after sustaining injuries that should have left them unconscious. Dr. Paul Hayes ran the colony's small medical facility and had never fired a weapon in anger during his entire life. When Zephyrian soldiers broke through the outer defensive perimeter, he rigged his surgical equipment to explode and took 7 aliens with him. His final transmission was a calm medical report. Multiple enemy casualties confirmed. Recommend similar defensive measures for other facilities. The battle's turning point came when maintenance worker Carl Jenkins discovered that Zephyrian energy shields operated on predictable frequency patterns. He modified several industrial welding units to emit disrupting pulses that temporarily disabled the alien defenses. Within hours, every human fighter carried improvised shield breakers cobbled together from spare parts and desperate ingenuity. By sunset, New Boston lay in ruins, but the Zephyrian forces had suffered casualties they never expected. 3 walkers destroyed, 2 assault craft captured, and nearly 500 alien soldiers killed or wounded. The humans had fought so fiercely that some Zephyrian units simply refused to advance further despite direct orders from their commanders. Sub-Commander Irelthos finally achieved victory through orbital bombardment, something he had hoped to avoid. The colony's defensive positions disappeared under concentrated plasma fire from his remaining ships. But even then, scattered human fighters continued attacking from hidden bunkers and underground tunnels. The final transmission from New Boston came from Colonel Lisa Martinez herself. She spoke from a damaged command bunker while alien forces closed in around her position. Her voice remained steady despite the explosions and weapon fire in the background. "This is New Boston to all human colonies. We fought with everything we had and we hurt them badly. These aliens can be beaten. They bleed when you cut them and they die when you kill them. Don't let our sacrifice be meaningless. Make them remember the price of attacking humanity." When Irelthos finally secured the smoking ruins of the colony, he found himself staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His forces had lost more personnel in one day of fighting than during the previous 3 planetary conquests combined. The humans had possessed no advanced weapons, no energy shields, and no orbital support. Yet somehow they had inflicted devastating damage on a superior military force. Even worse, the captured human fighters showed no signs of demoralization or defeat. They stared at their Zephyrian captors with undisguised hatred and spoke constantly about revenge and retribution. These people acted like the war was just beginning rather than ending. The victory reports that Irelthos transmitted back to Commander Vexthul contained troubling details that challenged everything the Empire believed about human military capabilities. Yes, the colony had fallen as predicted, but the cost in Zephyrian lives and equipment far exceeded any reasonable estimates. The news of New Boston's destruction reached Earth through emergency communication channels and spread across the planet like wildfire. President Helen Carter stood in the emergency session of the Global Defense Council as reports streamed in from the outer colonies. Her face remained composed, but her eyes burned with cold fury that had been building since the first distress signals arrived. The council chamber filled with representatives from every major nation and colony as humanity faced its first contact with hostile alien life. Military leaders, scientists, and political figures gathered around the central holographic display, showing the latest intelligence from the New Boston system. The images were not encouraging. Admiral Rick Johnson commanded the Earth Defense Fleet from his headquarters beneath the Pacific Ocean. He had spent 30 years preparing for possible conflicts with hostile alien species, but the theoretical had now become devastatingly real. His staff worked frantically to analyze every scrap of data about Zephyrian military capabilities while preparing defensive strategies. "Madam President," Admiral Johnson reported with grim efficiency, "our preliminary analysis suggests the enemy possesses significant technological advantages. Their energy weapons appear more powerful than our current defensive systems can handle. Their ships are larger and better armed than anything in our fleet. President Carter listened to the military assessment with growing determination rather than despair. She had risen to political leadership during humanity's most challenging period and earned her position through decisive action during multiple international crises. This situation demanded the same qualities that had made her successful in terrestrial politics. Admiral, how long do we have before they reach Earth? Intelligence estimates suggest 6 to 8 weeks based on their apparent travel speeds. That assumes they move directly toward our home system without stopping to secure their supply lines. Then we have 6 weeks to prepare for total war. The transformation began immediately. President Carter addressed the global population through every available communication channel while declaring a state of planetary emergency. Her words carried across Earth with the authority of absolute conviction. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, we face extinction at the hands of an alien empire that views us as inferior beings suitable only for slavery or death. They have murdered 50,000 innocent people at New Boston simply because we refuse to surrender our freedom. This aggression cannot stand. The speech continued with cold precision as Carter outlined humanity's response to alien invasion. Every human colony will mobilize for immediate military action. Every ship, every weapon, every resource will be committed to defending our species. We will not negotiate with these creatures. We will not compromise with murderers. We will fight them until they are destroyed or we are. The reaction exceeded even President Carter's expectations. Within 48 hours, volunteer recruitment centers across Earth reported lines stretching for kilometers as citizens demanded the opportunity to serve in the planetary defense forces. Manufacturing facilities retooled their production lines to produce military equipment, while research institutes began crash programs to develop new weapons technologies. Dr. Kate Williams led the Emergency Technology Development Program from the Advanced Research Laboratory in Geneva. Her team consisted of the most brilliant scientists humanity could assemble on short notice. Their mission was simple: find ways to defeat alien technology using human ingenuity and determination. We're not going to match their energy shields with traditional approaches, Dr. Williams explained to her research staff. But we don't need to match them. We need to circumvent them, overwhelm them, or turn them against their creators. The breakthrough came when her team analyzed fragments recovered from the New Boston battle site. Zephyrian technology relied on predictable energy patterns that could be disrupted through harmonic interference. Within 2 weeks, Williams scientists had developed portable shield disruptors that any infantry soldier could operate. Meanwhile, Admiral Johnson revealed humanity's greatest secret to the Global Defense Council. The fleet that alien intelligence had identified represented only a fraction of Earth's actual military capabilities. Hidden construction facilities throughout the solar system had been building advanced warships for decades under the classified Project Guardian. The massive shipyard complexes orbiting Jupiter emerged from stealth mode to reveal dozens of heavy cruisers and battleships that dwarfed anything the Zephyrians had encountered. The flagship UES Retribution alone carried more firepower than most planetary defense systems. These vessels incorporated technologies that human scientists had developed specifically for interstellar warfare. Captain Danny Walsh commanded one of the new destroyer squadrons from the bridge of UES Thunderbolt. His ship represented the cutting edge of human military engineering with fusion-powered engines, guided missile systems, and armor plating designed to absorb energy weapon impacts. More importantly, every crew member had volunteered for what everyone understood might be a suicide mission. The defensive preparations extended far beyond military technology. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker organized resistance networks across every human colony, with detailed plans for guerrilla warfare against occupying forces. His teams established hidden supply caches, communication networks, and sabotage equipment that could support long-term insurgency operations. If they want to occupy our worlds, they're going to pay for every street corner, Parker explained to his training groups. We're going to make their lives so miserable that they'll wish they had never heard of humanity. The resistance training revealed something that surprised even experienced military officers. Ordinary civilians demonstrated remarkable aptitude for unconventional warfare. Teachers learned to construct improvised explosive devices. Office workers mastered assassination techniques. Children practiced coded communication methods with deadly seriousness. Mrs. Carol Thompson organized the civilian support networks from her position as head of the Colonial Administration Office. Her teams coordinated resource distribution, refugee evacuation, and intelligence gathering across dozens of human settlements. Every colony received detailed instructions for supporting military operations while protecting non-combatant populations. "Remember, we're not just fighting for our own lives," she told her volunteers. "We're fighting for the right of every human child to grow up free. These aliens want to turn us into slaves or corpses. Neither option is acceptable." The intelligence war began when Commander Vexthul realized that his initial assessment of human capabilities had been drastically inadequate. Reconnaissance probes sent toward Earth detected military activity far beyond anything suggested by previous reports. The humans were not the primitive species his analysts had described. Captain Mike Rodriguez led deep space patrol missions that intercepted alien scout ships before they could gather detailed intelligence about human defenses. His squadron used advanced stealth technology to approach undetected before launching surprise attacks with new weapons systems. The goal was preventing the enemy from learning about humanity's true military strength until the main battle began. The captured Zephyrian equipment provided invaluable intelligence about alien tactical doctrine and technological weaknesses. Human engineers reverse-engineered their plasma weapons within days and immediately began developing improved versions. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting their technology, but humans adapted and improved it in weeks. Dr. Sandra Lee managed the weapons development program from her laboratory complex in Australia. Her teams worked around the clock to create fusion warheads small enough for individual soldiers to carry. The resulting devices could destroy armored vehicles or disable enemy shields with devastating effectiveness. "The aliens think we're primitive because we use chemical explosives and metal projectiles," Dr. Lee explained to her staff. "Let's show them what happens when primitive humans get access to advanced technology." Meanwhile, intelligence reports from captured prisoners revealed disturbing information about Zephyrian military psychology. These aliens had conquered 17 different star systems through overwhelming technological superiority. They had never faced opponents capable of matching their weapons or adapting to their tactics. The Empire's entire military doctrine assumed that superior technology guaranteed victory. Commander Julia Davis led the Psychological Warfare Division and recognized an opportunity to exploit alien assumptions about human behavior. Her teams prepared propaganda broadcasts designed to demoralize Zephyrian forces while demonstrating humanity's determination to fight regardless of casualties. "They expect us to surrender when facing impossible odds," Davis explained to her communication specialist. "Instead, we're going to show them that impossible odds just make us angrier." The final preparations involved every human settlement as President Carter coordinated planetary defense through the Emergency Command Network. Citizens understood that defeat meant extinction, while victory required sacrifices that previous generations had never faced. The choice was simple: fight with everything they possessed or watch their species disappear into slavery. As the 6-week preparation period drew to a close, the Battle of Titan's Gate began when Admiral Rick Johnson led the Human Defense Fleet into direct confrontation with Commander Vexthul's main battle group at the edge of the solar system. The engagement would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or disappeared into alien slavery. Both commanders understood that this single battle could end the war decisively. Vexthul positioned his forces according to standard Zephyrian tactical doctrine, with heavy cruisers forming the main battle line while smaller vessels provided support and reconnaissance. His flagship Dominion's Edge commanded from the center of the formation, surrounded by the most powerful ships in the alien fleet. The display showed over 60 Zephyrian vessels, arranged in perfect military precision. The human fleet approached in loose formations that violated every principle of conventional space warfare. Admiral Johnson commanded from the bridge of UES Constitution, while his ships scattered across a vast area of space instead of concentrating their firepower. To Zephyrian observers, the humans appeared disorganized and unprepared for serious combat. "Admiral, Enemy forces are maintaining dispersed formation patterns, reported Captain Tony Mitchell from his destroyer UES Lightning. They're presenting multiple targets instead of focusing their defensive capabilities. Confirmed, Lightning. All ships maintain current positions and prepare for coordinated strike operations. Remember, we only get one chance at this. The battle opened when Zephyrian long-range plasma cannons began targeting the closest human vessels. The aliens expected their superior firepower to destroy enemy ships quickly and efficiently. Instead, they discovered that human defensive technology had improved dramatically since the new Boston engagement. Captain Susan Kelly commanded the heavy cruiser UES Defiant and absorbed the first enemy volleys, while her crew worked to analyze Zephyrian weapon characteristics. The ship's new armor plating deflected plasma bolts that should have penetrated through to the reactor core. Her damage control teams reported minimal casualties despite direct hits from multiple alien weapons. Admiral, their plasma cannons operate on rotating frequency patterns just like our intelligence predicted, Kelly reported through the communication network. We can deflect about 60% of their shots using harmonic interference generators. The human counterattack began with guided missile barrages that overwhelmed Zephyrian point defense systems through sheer numbers. Admiral Johnson had loaded his ships with thousands of small warheads rather than relying on traditional heavy weapons. The aliens found their sophisticated defensive computers unable to track and destroy so many incoming projectiles simultaneously. Captain Danny Walsh led his destroyer squadron in close-range attacks that brought human ships within meters of alien hulls. His crew fired boarding torpedoes directly into enemy airlocks while combat engineers used cutting tools to breach Zephyrian armor plating. The aliens had never encountered enemies willing to engage in hand-to-hand combat aboard their own vessels. The most shocking moment came when Major Linda Davis led marine assault teams through the vacuum of space to capture alien ships from the inside. Her soldiers wore advanced combat suits that allowed them to survive in hard radiation while fighting through compartments never designed for boarding actions. The Zephyrians found human marines appearing in their engine rooms and command centers, despite multiple layers of security. "This is impossible," Vexthul declared as reports reached his command center. "No species fights this way. They're attacking through hard vacuum without regard for basic survival protocols. Commander, human forces are demonstrating tactical flexibility beyond our military projections," his tactical officer replied with obvious confusion. "They adapt their strategies faster than our response systems can compensate." The turning point came when Captain Tony Mitchell made a decision that would become legendary throughout human space. His destroyer UES Lightning had sustained critical damage from plasma cannon hits and was losing power to essential systems. Rather than retreat to safety, Mitchell ordered his crew to abandon ship while he piloted the vessel directly into the Zephyrian battlecruiser, Dark Conquest. "All hands, this is the captain. Evacuation pods are launching in 30 seconds. Make sure our message reaches Admiral Johnson. Tell him we hurt them bad and they can be beaten." The collision destroyed both ships in a massive explosion that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. But the psychological impact on Zephyrian forces exceeded the physical damage. The aliens could not comprehend enemies who chose mutual destruction rather than surrender or retreat. Meanwhile, Sergeant Alex Brown's Special Forces team achieved what Zephyrian military doctrine considered absolutely impossible. His squad infiltrated the command ship Pride of Empire through maintenance conduits and captured the vessel's primary computer core. Within hours, human technicians were downloading alien tactical data and weapon specifications. "Admiral, we've got access to their entire military database," Brown reported from the captured ship. "Their shield harmonics, weapon frequencies, ship design specifications, everything. We can beat their technology because we understand it better than they do." The intelligence breakthrough allowed human forces to exploit Zephyrian weaknesses with devastating effectiveness. Dr. Kate Williams' research teams had already modified captured alien weapons to operate at higher power levels than their original designs allowed. The improvements came from human engineering principles that prioritized performance over safety margins. Captain Michelle Garcia commanded the battleship UES Retribution and used the new intelligence to coordinate fleet-wide tactical adjustments. Her weapons officers retargeted their missiles to exploit specific vulnerabilities in alien shield generators. The results exceeded every expectation, as Zephyrian vessels began suffering critical system failures from weapons that should have been easily deflected. Target their primary shield generators with fusion warheads set for harmonic disruption, Garcia ordered her gun crews. Once their defenses collapse, follow up with plasma cannon strikes using their own frequency patterns against them. The Zephyrian fleet began suffering casualties at an alarming rate, as human forces demonstrated their ability to learn and adapt during active combat. Every alien ship destroyed provided additional intelligence that improved human tactical performance. The aliens found themselves fighting enemies who became more dangerous with each passing hour. Commander Vexthul watched his carefully planned invasion dissolve into chaos as human forces achieved impossible victories through pure determination and tactical innovation. His own flagship came under direct attack when Commander Sarah Martinez led a boarding party through the ship's docking bay, despite withering defensive fire. Human forces have breached the primary hull, his security chief reported with panic in his voice. They're fighting through Deck 7 and advancing toward the command center. Our energy weapons are ineffective in close quarters combat. How are they surviving our internal defense systems? They're not surviving, Commander. They keep attacking even after sustaining fatal injuries. These creatures fight until they die, and then other humans take their place. The final phase of the battle demonstrated humanity's most terrifying characteristic: their ability to coordinate massive operations without centralized command. When Admiral Johnson's flagship Constitution suffered a direct hit that destroyed the primary communication array, the human fleet continued operating as efficiently as before. Captain Robert Hayes assumed fleet command from his cruiser UES Vengeance and maintained tactical coordination through backup communication systems. Every human ship captain understood their mission and continued fighting independently while supporting overall strategic objectives. The aliens had never encountered military forces capable of such distributed leadership. Engineer Mary Lopez managed to keep UES Constitution operational despite catastrophic damage to the ship's primary systems. She rerouted power through backup conduits while jury-rigging weapon systems that should have been completely destroyed. Her crew fought fires and radiation leaks while maintaining combat effectiveness through sheer determination. Admiral, we've lost main engines and primary weapons, but I can give you one final attack run, Lopez reported from the damaged engineering section. I can overload the fusion reactor to achieve ramming speed, but we won't survive the impact. Admiral, Johnson made the decision without hesitation. Do it, Chief, make this count. The Constitution's final charge through the center of the Zephyrian formation destroyed 3 enemy cruisers and severely damaged Vexthul's flagship. The ship's crew transmitted their final message as the vessel disintegrated around them. For Earth. For humanity. For every human child who will never bow to alien masters. When the battle ended, both fleets had suffered devastating casualties, but the strategic situation had changed completely. The Zephyrians had lost over half their vessels while learning that human military capabilities far exceeded their intelligence estimates. More importantly, they had discovered that humans possessed something the Empire had forgotten during centuries of easy conquest: the will to sacrifice everything for principles they considered more important than survival. Commander Vexthul made his final desperate gamble by leading the surviving Zephyrian fleet directly toward Earth itself, in hopes of breaking human morale through the threat to their homeworld. His remaining 30 ships represented the last hope for Imperial victory in what had become a nightmare campaign. If he could force human surrender by threatening their planetary population, the Empire might still salvage something from this disaster. The approach to Earth revealed the true extent of human defensive preparations. Orbital weapons platforms surrounded the planet in multiple defensive rings, while patrol fleets moved in coordinated patterns that demonstrated sophisticated tactical planning. The humans had used their preparation time to transform their home system into a fortress that would cost thousands of lives to overcome. Admiral Rick Johnson coordinated the final defense from his new flagship UES Retribution after transferring his command staff from the destroyed Constitution. The massive battleship represented humanity's most advanced military technology, with weapon systems that incorporated everything learned from captured Zephyrian equipment. His crew was ready for the battle that would determine their species' Survival. All defensive units, this is Admiral Johnson. The enemy is making their final assault on Earth itself. Every human who has ever lived, every child who will be born, every dream our species has ever shared depends on what we do in the next few hours. We will not fail. The space around Earth filled with ships as civilian vessels joined military forces in the planetary defense. Captain Greg Thompson led a volunteer squadron of converted merchant vessels, mining ships, and even luxury yachts that had been hastily armed with improvised weapons systems. These crews had no military training, but possessed something more valuable: absolute determination to protect their home. Civilian Defense Squadron reporting for duty, Admiral. We may not be professional soldiers, but we're humans defending Earth. That makes us the most dangerous force in the galaxy. The battle began when Zephyrian long-range weapons opened fire on the outer defensive perimeters. Orbital platforms absorbed the initial bombardment, while human missile batteries responded with coordinated salvos that overwhelmed alien point defense systems. The exchange of fire lit up space with explosions that could be seen from the planetary surface. Captain Angela Rodriguez commanded the heavy cruiser UES Liberty and led the first wave of human counterattacks against the advancing alien formation. Her ship had been refitted with captured Zephyrian plasma cannons that fired at higher power levels than their original specifications allowed. The modifications were dangerous, but provided the firepower needed to penetrate enemy defensive systems. Target: their lead cruiser with full plasma battery fire. These weapons came from their own ships, so let's show them how humans use alien technology. The tactical situation evolved rapidly, as both sides committed their remaining reserves to the decisive engagement. Commander Vexthul found his forces facing enemies who fought with increasing desperation as the battle approached Earth's atmosphere. Human ships that should have retreated instead charged directly into Zephyrian formations while broadcasting defiant messages across all communication frequencies. This is Captain Brian Murphy aboard UES Challenger. My ship is critically damaged, but we're still fighting. Earth is behind us, and there's nowhere left to retreat. We're taking at least 3 of these alien bastards with us. The breakthrough came when engineer Mary Lopez achieved what Zephyrian scientists considered physically impossible. Working from the damaged engineering section of UES Constitution's sister ship Retribution, she managed to boost the fusion engines beyond all safety protocols while maintaining structural integrity through pure determination and improvised repairs. Admiral, I can give you ramming speed for approximately 4 minutes before the reactor containment fails. The ship will achieve velocities that our hull was never designed to handle, but we'll punch through their entire formation like a meteor. Admiral, Johnson authorized the attack without hesitation. The Retribution accelerated toward the center of the Zephyrian fleet, while every human weapon fired in support of the desperate charge. The massive battleship absorbed plasma cannon hits that would have destroyed smaller vessels while maintaining course toward the alien flagship. The collision occurred at a relative velocity that turned both ships into expanding clouds of superheated debris. The explosion destroyed Vexthul's command vessel and severely damaged every Zephyrian ship within thousands of kilometers. More importantly, the psychological impact shattered alien morale as they realized that humans would literally destroy their most powerful warships to achieve victory. All Zephyrian vessels, this is Acting Commander Threlmox aboard Crimson Victory. The flagship has been destroyed, and Commander Vexthul is dead. Human forces are continuing their attacks despite impossible casualties. Request immediate authorization to withdraw from the system. The final phase of the battle demonstrated humanity's most remarkable characteristic: their ability to continue fighting effectively even after suffering devastating losses. When the Retribution's destruction left a gap in human defensive lines, civilian vessels moved forward to fill the position without waiting for orders from military command. Captain Diana Foster piloted her converted mining ship directly into the damaged Zephyrian cruiser Dark Vengeance, while her crew prepared improvised explosive charges. Her final transmission became part of human military legend. This is for every human who died at New Boston. This is for every child who deserves to grow up free. This is for Earth. The alien fleet began disintegrating under attacks that violated every principle of conventional military doctrine. Human forces demonstrated tactical flexibility that adapted to changing battlefield conditions faster than Zephyrian commanders could respond. Every destroyed human ship was immediately replaced by another vessel, whose crew fought with even greater determination. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker led the final assault that captured the alien command ship, Pride of Empire, through a boarding, action that should have been impossible. His Marines fought through corridors filled with toxic atmosphere while wearing damaged combat suits that provided minimal protection. The objective was capturing alien leadership alive to negotiate surrender terms. Admiral Johnson, this is Parker aboard the captured alien flagship. We've secured their command center and taken Acting Commander Threlmox prisoner. The alien crew is requesting permission to surrender. The formal surrender negotiations took place aboard the Pride of Empire, with Admiral Johnson representing humanity while Threlmox spoke for the surviving Zephyrian forces. The alien commander appeared broken by the experience of fighting enemies who treated certain death as an acceptable cost for achieving military objectives. Admiral, I must ask why your people fight with such ferocity. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 17 star systems through superior technology and overwhelming force. No species has ever resisted our military might as effectively as humanity. Admiral Johnson studied the defeated alien commander with cold satisfaction before responding. Because we understand something that your empire has forgotten during centuries of easy conquest. There are things in the universe more valuable than survival. Freedom is one of them. The right to determine our own destiny is another. We would rather die fighting for these principles than live as slaves under alien rule. But the casualties your species has suffered are enormous. Hundreds of thousands of humans have died during this conflict. How can such losses be justified? For abstract concepts like freedom and independence? Those concepts aren't abstract to us. They're the foundation of everything that makes life worth living. Every human who died in this war chose to sacrifice themselves so that future generations could grow up free. That choice gives their deaths meaning that no alien empire can understand or defeat. The surrender terms were simple and non-negotiable. The Zephyrian Empire would withdraw all forces from human space immediately and pay massive reparations for the destruction of New Boston. Any future contact between the species would occur only through diplomatic channels, with full recognition of human territorial sovereignty. Threlmox signed the agreement with obvious reluctance, while his staff transmitted withdrawal orders to surviving Zephyrian vessels throughout human space. The Empire's invasion had failed completely while teaching them that technological superiority meant nothing against enemies willing to die for their principles. As the alien fleet departed toward their own territory, Admiral Johnson received reports from across human space confirming that the war was over. Every human colony had survived the conflict while gaining valuable experience in military operations and advanced technology. The species that emerged from the Zephyrian invasion was stronger, more united, and better prepared for future challenges than ever before. The final entry in Commander Fexthel's personal log was recovered from the wreckage of his flagship and became one of the most important documents in human history. His words provided insight into alien psychology while confirming humanity's emergence as a major galactic power. I regret underestimating humanity. Their strength cannot be denied. We conquered 17 star systems through superior technology and overwhelming numbers.